I could afford a lifestyle that I liked. I had a house in the historic neighborhood in the US, married to the love of my life. And to afford the lifestyle, one of my criteria was I don't want to have to work. And I didn't have to work. My business was on autopilot. And still, I was unhappy. And I didn't know why. So that was what got me to India, like my own pursuit of happiness. That what is it that I'm missing in the life, because I have checked all the check boxes.
Hi, welcome to Switching Mindsets. I'm Anuradha, and today we are speaking to Robin Singh, the founder of Peepal Farm, an animal rescue center near Dharamshala, and the author of Happiness Happens. So, hi, Robin.
Hey, Anuradha.
Yeah. So let's start by, your book's tagline, which says happiness for those who have everything else. So, would you like to elaborate on that?
What I mean to say by it is that people who have had their, just there's no like satiating every desire, but people who are just like who are looking beyond just wanting to want. Now it could be read a couple different ways. It could also mean that you're a person of means and he or she has acquired everything they wanted, or it also could mean that you had very little, very few desires to begin with, and now you're looking to do more than to just satiate desires.
Okay, and I like the way you've explained it in the book, that our brains are wired, to look for a problem to solve. So if your physical needs are met, your emotional needs are met, then I mean you land up with an existential crisis when everything is going well, right? So
Right, it's rooted in how we have evolved. Like we have always been solving a problem. I mean, those are the only people who survive long enough to reproduce. So, which is why I mean it's a blessing and a curse.
yeah, absolutely. Robin, about People Farm that you started, you said that, that's the first time you ever felt at home when you finally, like about a decade and a half ago when you started it. And you've spoken very frankly about your journey and, living up in a house where your parents were fighting and things like that. And, moving to the US, which is an adventure in itself. So can you briefly, tell us how you came upon it?
Came upon the idea of returning to India.
Yeah, and then starting People Farm and finally feeling at home. I mean, it's all in your book, so people can read about it. You've written it at length, but like give us a short idea of, what all been about.
Absolutely. And I'll begin by telling you what it wasn't about. So, a lot of people, because of the work we do right now, people think that, oh, that was such a, like a Mahan thing, such a great thing to do, and such a sacrifice to leave US to do this. But I didn't come to India to do something great. This was at the end of, like 2010, that whatever we wanted we had, like the book subtitle says, for those who had everything, for those who have everything else. So I had everything else, which was I could afford a lifestyle that I liked. I had a house in the historic neighborhood in the US, married to the love of my life. And to afford the lifestyle, one of my criteria was I don't want to have to work, and I didn't have to work. My business was on autopilot. And still, I was unhappy and I didn't know why. So that was what got me to India, like my own pursuit of happiness. That what is it that I'm missing in the life, because I have checked all the check boxes in the template that's been handed out to me. And so what am I missing? That's why I came to India. Now, even in India, like after spending like around 18 months exploring various things, which had various phases, being a traveler, trying to be a hippie, eventually I came across a woman in Oroville. This is an international township in Tamil Nadu near Pondicherry. And that woman was old, anemic, broke, and she was still taking care of 40 to 60 dogs. And that's when it hit upon me that she has nothing and she's still giving, and I have everything I have ever wanted, and I'm still wanting more. So that could be seen as this singular moment which changed the orientation of my life. And instead of pursuing happiness, I decided to pursue purpose. But it wasn't with the goal of achieving happiness. It was after giving up on happiness, that there is no such thing as happiness, it's a sham. That's when I started pursuing purpose.
Right. So when you say happiness is a sham, like what do you mean? You said it in your book, and I guess now you've achieved happiness as well by pursuing purpose. But what do you mean by happiness is a sham?
So that's what I thought then. This was 2012 of August, which is when I met Lorraine, and I said, I want to pursue purpose. There is no such thing as happiness. But if I were to complete that sentence, I would say there is no happiness that is being sold to us day in, day out on television, on people who are so jubilant. Even if they open a soda can, they're like, "Whoa, happy!" They're driving, they're happy, they're smoking a cigarette, they're happy. It's just like that ecstatic, that perpetual ecstatic state does not exist, because, and it's got a very biological reason. We adapt to bad events and we adapt to good events, otherwise we won't survive. So for example, the TV says, oh, if you have a house in this multi-story building, you'll be happy. If you have a BMW, you'll be happy. And I do that. After a month, maybe 6 months, I will adapt to what I have. I mean, you know this. You buy a new car, you're happy looking at it day one, but like after 6 months, after a year, it's just a car. It gets you from point A to point B. It's not giving you happiness. So that happiness which they sell is not attainable. So that is what I meant by happiness is a sham. And
Right.
that's why, and that's why I said, well, if I can't be in that state, what's the point? Because even to get those bursts of high, you have to perpetually keep giving yourself a new goal and keep working towards it. So it's not like you just have to want, you have to want more,
Right.
which is
You
why it's
want to
such a
want more. Yeah,
sham.
that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And kind of explore that feeling, I suppose, because we want to want more, but then we just clamp down on it and distract ourselves with something else, you know? And yeah, like what you're saying, I guess happiness, we're mistaking it for pleasure. Okay, so from your book, I'm just quoting, you basically talked about something called a lifestyle withdrawal. And you said that, it's ironic that craving for what we mistakenly call happiness is what creates a lot of our suffering, right? So,
Yes.
yeah. So, tell me, I'm actually curious to know, we've talked about you living a life of purpose now. And what is different from how do you feel, today when you were living a life earlier, pursuing happiness and trying to figure out what to do, having your existential crisis, and today when you live a life of purpose, how do you feel?
See, the one stark difference is that at that time I was suffering. I was really unhappy in spite of having what I wanted, in spite of being in good health, in spite of having my emotional needs met. I was still suffering. So what happened is, like, now I feel good. Now I feel good because this infinite void we have, that is created by our brain, that perpetually needs a problem, we have to satiate it with something infinite. When we are trying to fill that gap with something finite, like buying things, material things, you cannot fill that infinite with finite. So you always have to chase. So like I said, it could be a chase, like, you always keep giving yourself a new goal, that I want to build a $10 million company, I want to build $100 million company. Or it could be something more purposeful, because like what I am doing right now, it's this is also infinite. It's a perpetual chase to try and counter suffering when there's infinite suffering. But then that chase fills my infinite void, so I'm not suffering anymore. So that is a big difference.
Right. Like you've mentioned in your book, that it's the goal or the purpose of doing good is limitless, right? Because, like you said, there's always a problem to solve. Your brain is constantly solving a problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No
especially when
end to
you're
it.
working. Correct, because like I see suffering as the default in the world. It's like darkness. Darkness is the default. You can only have light as long as you are doing something to keep that light burning. So that's the nature of doing good. Suffering is always there, and you have to perpetually work to counter that suffering. The difference being, I mean, sometimes I get asked this, like, oh, but like, you're still chasing. Yes, but earlier, if I would have just given myself a bigger goal, like, yo, I want to have a public limited company, I want to have, like, this $100 million company or whatever. While on that chase, had I asked myself, what am I living for, I wouldn't have gotten an answer, because it's like, okay, I'm living to build a company for what? There is no worthwhile answer to that question. Right now, it's like, okay, I am constantly running, but it's to help those who are less fortunate than me. That's a worthwhile reason for me to live. Now, you mentioned lifestyle withdrawal earlier. I want to explain what that is. That okay?
Yes, please, please.
So what happened? It's not like I started working on People Farm. We started this place December 2014. It's not like day one I'm like, oh, this is my answer. It was only after a few years of having set it up and having running it, I felt satiation, I felt content, which is when I realized, this is the happiness I always wanted. This is what happiness feels like. And it took so long because we have gotten so used to deriving a feel good from pleasure, a feel good from creation of wants, and then satiation of those wants. So it takes some time for our brain to rewire and start deriving feeling good from doing good.
Yeah. And I think it all started, if I'm not wrong, from you wanting to just have a day and where you were free to do what you wanted, anything you wanted, right?
Yeah, that was the goal. Like, so I reached US, which is a funny story in on its own. It was a misspelled email, which is how I landed in the US. So this was 2003, and before that I was a freelancer, and this was the first time I had a job, and I hated going to the job. I hated having to show up at a fixed time and then work on somebody else's terms. So that was the first time I had a goal in my life, which was that, okay, I like my lifestyle, I like my life how it is, but I don't want to have to sell my hours every day to maintain it. That was my goal. I didn't know it was called financial independence. So that's where I got by the end of 2010, again, which was, like how it said, like the two worst thing, the two tragedies in life. One is not getting what you wanted, and one is getting it. So it was once I attained that financial freedom, my problems started.
Yeah, that's funny actually. Quite ironic, and I guess a lot of people face that, right? So tell me, Robin, what is a typical day for you like at the People Farm? Something that you've built, you've constructed, and you have a lot of volunteers coming in, and you've written that you have like a staff of 60 people now. So what do you do over there from, when you wake up in the morning?
So see, that has been perpetually changing because we have been perpetually building People Farm. I can tell you what my day right now looks like, especially now that I have started focusing more on my health. My day starts, I have to walk our resident dogs. So we have four dogs who live on the farm with me, the ones that I am personally responsible for. So I have to walk them, and then my day starts. It's mostly in the first half is mostly management, which is checking in with the media department. Our media department is what creates all the animations and all the videos that we use to aware people. Then I have to check with communications, because because of our media, we are widely known all over India, so we get a lot of emails and phones and WhatsApp messages about how do I help this animal? I'm in this particular area. So we have a separate department to handle that. So I have to check in with them. I have to check in with our hospital. What initially had started just as a clinic in our home eventually grew into this hospital we started in September of 2003. So that's a proper facility with an X-ray, ultrasound, a functional lab, a recovery center for 70 animals, including dogs and cows. So I have to check in with the hospital, check in with the resident animal manager, because we have around 50 adopted animals, which includes horses, cows, buffalo, sheep, goat, chickens. Any animal we can't release stays with us. So the first half is all of that and correspondence. Second half, I try to carve out time, like creative time, because any of the content we produce, and I'll come to why we produce content, any of the content we produce, I am the writer and the creative director. So that's my usually second half. Also, if I'm doing anything like this podcast, so so that's all my
Yeah.
second half. So my day is structured in two working halves of 9 to 1 and 3 to 7. 1 to 3 is my gym time and lunch.
Wow, that's great. Sounds like a packed day. But I got stuck at when you said that there are 50 animals that you've kind of adopted. Could you tell me I mean, what are these animals?
Mhm.
How do you take care of them? Do you interact with them? How does it work?
Sure. So these are the animals for one reason or the other we could not release because we didn't initially plan to have a sanctuary, just a hospital which would do rescue, recovery, and release. But then there are some animals like a bull who's blind or a calf whose mother has died and can't go back on the street. I mean, no animal should go back on the street ideally, but then there are few who have it worse than the others. Or a cow whose leg we had to amputate, or a puppy who is after an accident has neurological issues and does not understand the sounds of the street, or if somebody say bought a chicken from someplace and like a live hen, and they can't care for her anymore. So that's how one after the other we have ended up having chickens and goats, sheep, a sheep that we have gotten from shepherds, because shepherds they keep walking their herd even if a sheep's leg is broken or if a goat's leg is broken, is forced to walk. So sometimes we have had to buy sheep off of shepherds. So that's how. And then there are dogs who haven't gotten adopted and have ended up staying with us. And there are 20 adoptable dogs as well. So we have staff to take care of food, medicine, and water. Now, because these animals require company too, that's why we have volunteers. So any enrichment, any labor of love kind of work, because you cannot pay somebody to play with an animal or to interact happily with them. So that's what we rely our volunteers on.
And where do your volunteers come from?
All over the world, all over the world. So a lot of international volunteers as well as the volunteers from all over India.
Yeah, but I think this is another book waiting to be written. I mean, a bull who's blind, a sheep that can't walk, and all these things. It's wonderful, really.
So see, when we started the place, we started with the intention of helping animals heal and also helping animals be heard. That was the idea, because so I'd started doing animal welfare in 2013 of Feb, and People Farm was started because I realized there's only very few animals you can help if you're just doing one animal at a time. If you want to bring a bigger change, you have to change how people think about animals. At one point they thought like black people were less than human and they could be used as objects. At one point they thought women were less than human and can be used as objects. But right now people still think animals are objects, and that's the thinking we want to counter. And that's why all these bulls and dogs who come through, we tell their stories using social media and reach tens of millions of people a month, millions of people a month.
Yeah, that's lovely. And you've written in your book, no, that animals are people too, right? Because they feel, they suffer.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you take a cow's baby away from her, she panics. The baby cries all day. So they emotionally suffer. They understand a lot of things that we don't even understand. Like my dogs already can tell if I'm planning to leave on a trip. So they are very emotionally intelligent. They have the capability to emotionally suffer. And even if somebody wants to reject that, I mean, it's It's clear as day that they can physically suffer. They feel thirsty just like us. They seek comfort. So, yeah, in every sense of the word, animals are people too.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thought to remember, really. So you also make kombucha. We're looking at your LinkedIn bio. It says CEO, People Farm, Animal Rescue, writer, People Farm Tunes, and Brewmaster, People Farm Kombucha, right?
Yeah, I wear multiple hats.
Yeah. And of course, now you're the author of Happiness Happens as well. So there are products I
So,
saw, right? That People Farm also has.
yeah, so it started because when we moved from the US and we didn't move to a city, we eventually, settled in this village. So there were a lot of things we were used to consuming which were not available. One of them being peanut butter, like without salt or sugar or preservatives or any nastiness. So we started making peanut butter for ourselves. Another thing I was used to drinking was kombucha, and even in the US, instead of paying $3.50 for a bottle, I just brewed my own kombucha. So I continued the tradition here, and a lot of volunteers came, and they also sampled the products we made. And then eventually we thought, as a way of marketing People Farm, not as a way of bringing income, just so people who are not, say, concerned about animals, but concerned about their own health, they would get to know about People Farm through our products. So that's how we started selling products. It was a marketing effort where instead of spending money, we would make money. And we started with the products that we were already making for ourselves. And we have continued that tradition. So even right now, everything we make are things that we consume ourselves.
Okay, that's great. And you I before anything else, I'm just curious if you don't mind my asking that, how do you fund all the activity at People Farm?
So initially, the capital expense and the running expenses were our own. Eventually, now that a lot of people know about us and they support us, so our annual expenses are met mostly by donations. Part of it's funded by People Farm Media because all the videos we put out, they have advertisements on them, like by YouTube or Facebook. So partially we get funds from that, and also partially we get funds from selling our products.
Well, that's great. Like content creation is actually, helping fuel like a noble purpose. That's really fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
products too. So everything. So we after taxes, everything is donated to People Farm.
Okay. That's cool. And another thing you've written very honestly about, when you first decided to shift to a village, your wife was always been very supportive. She was not sure that she wanted to live in a village. So, you moved for 6 months on your
Mhm.
own, then she joined you. So how is it, having your companion and, how does her purpose tie up with your purpose or you found it together? How has it worked for both of you?
Well, I think we were on the same arc, like the same trajectory. I was just a bit more ahead of her. So, which is why, she couldn't come to terms with moving to a village for purpose. And I was like, look, I can't come to terms with not helping when I can. So, because I had this realization of what I call a suffering footprint. It's like even if we are not chasing material goods, even if we are very minimalistic, we have to consume to live. And every act of consumption requires something to be produced. And in an industrial system, especially, every act of production causes somebody to suffer somewhere. So I saw my time as not just mine. So I can't allocate it to one person, like, oh, you know what, because we are romantically involved, all my time's yours. I couldn't do that, which is why I said I'm gonna move. And eventually she came not because of a realization. She came, okay, you know what, like, let's not throw this relationship away, I'm gonna give it a chance. And this place then grew on her, and then she saw the women in the village and she was like, I want to empower them. And the first step of empowerment is employment. So that's how she got involved in the project, not through animals but through women.
Okay, that's great. And so you found, purpose together and separately, but finally together. That's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and in a larger way, it's a similar purpose. It's like essentially there's nothing worthwhile doing in this life except to help those who cannot help themselves, those who are less fortunate than you. And no matter what condition you are in, you always have something you can give to someone. So that's the idea.
Yeah. And Robin, if you don't mind my mentioning it, you've also written about your choice not to have children. So, what I found very interesting was, most people say that they don't want to bring in a child into a world which is full of war and strife and, all that. But your thing is that, it's just one more human being who's going to consume resources of the planet, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
See,
if,
most people
hmm.
are, and as awful as it would sound, like most of us have a very parasitic relationship with Earth. Although we are a species which is in a position to give a lot, to reduce the suffering that is inherent in the nature, the way we live our lives, we choose not to tap into that human potential, and we have this misguided pursuit of happiness. We just live for like a life that is centered around our wants, which are which are never met. So we, most of us, live these unhappy lives. No matter what we choose to portray, we live these unhappy lives and we spread unhappiness. So yeah, what's the point of bringing another person who's probably gonna do that? And the probability of that, mathematically speaking, is very high because of that's how most people choose to live.
Yeah, interesting way of thinking. Yeah. So, tell me, are you completely now?
Um,
Yeah. Tell me, you were saying something?
no. Go ahead.
Okay. So I was saying, are you completely like, tied up to the village life now, totally committed to it? Or do you also go to the city? Do you need your city time sometimes? Do you crave it?
Not at all. And no, I don't crave city time. I don't like going to cities. I mean, I do for work if I have to, but not something I enjoy. I hardly like leaving the farm. I'm pretty content here. As long as I'm able to do what I want to do, I'm content.
Okay. And, you've also given like a guide or how to on, how to find your purpose, how to go about it. And, one of the things I found interesting, like, people can read the book, for that. But one thing I found interesting before your how to, in fact, before that chapter, you said that, you find thinking big scary, right? Because most of us have this big goal or something that we're working towards. And you said that you prefer small steps. Could you explain that if you can?
Yeah, and I think it's a person to person different thing. For me, if I, for example, if somebody had told me 10 years ago that, okay, to do good, you have to set up a farm where it's going to have a sanctuary for 60 animals, you'll have to have a hospital for 70 animals, you'll have a staff of 60, there's a media department, there's a products department, there's an accounting thing, this is what you're going to have to do, for I would have been so overwhelmed that I would not have been able to start. Maybe for some people they would have liked that clarity so they can map everything. For me, it's like, I want to help, I want to reduce suffering. Whatever is the simplest step I can take towards that. And then from that point, I will figure out what's my next step. So it's much more organic for me.
Yes, and I think that works, because it can get overwhelming to work towards a huge goal. But then you start and you discover where you're headed, right?
Yeah, again, like I said, it has to be a personality type thing because some
Yeah.
people they're like, you know what, I want to set up an oil refinery. So they probably already have to have everything charted out, like the land and the industry and the staff and the regulation, because they can't think like, yeah, what, I'm going to buy some land and see how to set up an oil refinery. So it probably depends on project and person to person.
Yeah, that's true. But did you have an idea of, what the farm would look like? Because you built a mud house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So I didn't have an idea of what the farm would look like. I had a dream of sorts just about the farm because the whole place started the idea wasn't to start an organization. The idea was to just have a house where I live in a certain way, where my life is my message. So it was gonna be always gonna be like a mud house, but I thought it's gonna be like a hobbit house. But then I realized the climate here in Himachal, where it rains so much, we can't have hobbit house unless we wanted to collapse on us. So the idea was to live a very a life that is very grounded. So we live in a mud house, we grow some of our vegetables. Our house will be more focused on the function, so it will have space for people who want to come help us. It will have space for some injured animals that we can help recover. That was the idea. So that's how we started. So that was the vision, and now it's gotten really scaled up.
Okay, but tell me about the advantages of living in a mud house, because you said that the 18-inch thick walls, which also, control the climate and it cools and heats as necessary.
Yeah, so the first advantage is you use less material. So if it's something you care about, that using as little industrial material as possible, then a mud house has that advantage. You can use mud bricks, you can use pine trees, which are sustainable because they grow really fast. So there's a lot of pine available here, and you use natural material. But the specific advantages you're talking about is if you do a solar passive construction. So traditionally, that's how construction has been, where the house has thick mud walls, so 18-inch thick walls, which act as this buffer. It acts like a battery. So when the day is hot, the walls would absorb the heat, and when the nights cool down, they would release the heat inside. So in the night, it's gonna keep the room warmer, and in the day, it's gonna keep it cooler. Then the house is built in such a way it's facing south. So in winters we get plenty of sun. And then we planted like a row of mulberry trees right in the front of the house, because these are deciduous trees, which means in winters they shed their leaves. So in winters our sun is not blocked, but in summers the house is shaded. Also, the angle of the porch determines that, because in the summers the angle of the sun is higher, so we don't get as much direct sunlight in the house.
Wow, sounds beautiful. The mulberry, I'm just visualizing the mulberry trees. So you have a lot of trees there, right? What are the trees that you have around your
Hundreds. Hundreds. So we planted, of course, a lot of mulberries because we have goat and sheep as well. So we need mulberry trees to feed them. We have a lot of bananas, we have papayas, guavas are native here, mangoes are native here. Then we have tuni. I don't know English, the English name of that tree. Then we have a lot of the native. It's sorry the it's called a palm. Sorry. So we have a lot of native palms. So there's just a lot of native trees here. And then we planted a lot of fruit trees too. So we planted a lot of apricots, plums, peaches. Yeah, so we have fruit all year round
Yeah,
for
so
most of the year.
you're like living off the land, basically, growing
Not
your food.
entirely,
Okay.
not entirely. So I can grow my oil seed, I grow my veggies, but my grain and legumes we have to buy.
Okay.
It's not easy, because especially I can't give a whole lot of time to the farm because I am mostly consumed by just running this organization.
Right. And Robin, you said that your life is a message, really, right? And that is the best way to live, honestly. Do you think in terms of leaving a legacy or, building a legacy? Do you think about that?
See, I thought more in terms of documenting the things I stumbled across, because I think I have been incredibly lucky uh, that not only I got the circumstances to pursue this kind of life, but also that I met the right people that I could get on this path. Because it's very easy to spin out of control and stray off the path when you have the means and resources to do that. A lot of people, when they have an existential crisis, their life doesn't take a positive direction after that. So my goal was to document So somebody else who is in a similar phase of life can probably benefit from what I learned. So in that sense, I think my book's my legacy. Like,
Yeah,
that's something like if I
yeah.
were dying and somebody would ask me, hey, dear Mr. Robin, tell us some wise things. I think I would tell them my story and what I learned.
Yeah, and you've done a great job. So tell me, finally, since we've come back to the book, who is the book for?
It's for people who are going through something in their life. They don't have to be able to exactly define it, but they feel like something is off. Something is just not quite working the way we have been living, but they don't also know what next. How else can they build their life, which is why they are unable to live the way that they are living right now, even if it's not working for them. It's for those people.
Okay. And, another thing I just want to reiterate what you said, that happiness is the absence of suffering. Is that right? How would you
Yes,
define
absolutely.
happiness for those looking for it? Should they look for purpose instead? And how do they know when they found happiness?
See, that's the elusive part. You cannot pursue purpose with an expectation of like, oh, if I pursue purpose, I will be happy. That's the thing. Happiness is a consequence when when you are pursuing a worthwhile purpose because it's worth pursuing. Because so you do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And then considering you're not emotionally suffering and you're not physically in a whole lot of pain, you would experience happiness. That's been my observation. It's not going to be right away. There is a, like I said, there's a hump you have to cross, like a lifestyle withdrawal period of 2 to 3 years. But also, you cannot expect that contentment. That's the only time you're going to get it.
Yeah, and you've also, said, I think this is your actual tagline, अच्छा काम करने के अलावा करने को है भी क्या, right? What else can you do except for doing good, right?
Yeah. See, now there is a bit of a disclaimer. This applies to people who have empathy. So, where
Okay.
nature and nurture have given them a spark of empathy, because if your spark of empathy is dead, maybe nobody fanned the fire, so to speak, then what do you care? What do you care if your life, every action in your life carries a suffering footprint? Yes, it does. That's a fact. But you don't care if somebody else feels pain. If you're that kind of person, then yeah, I don't think then you would agree with that. अच्छा काम करने के अलावा है ही क्या? Then you'll say, you know what? I'll just pursue even I'll die pursuing happiness. I'm gonna at least have fun while doing it. I don't care if others have to suffer because of it.
Yeah, so first we need empathy, and then comes compassion, and then purpose or anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the overlap. If you're the kind of person who's like Donald Trump, this is not a book for Donald Trump.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Robin, and all the best for Happiness Happens. Any message for readers, for anybody listening in?
I would say one thing, sometimes people have come up to me and they've said like, that you really think that we have to be learned to be happy, learn how to be happy. And I say, look, here's the thing, even if we've had a car in our house forever, but we have to learn how to drive it. We have had atta and pani and potatoes in our home and a gas stove, but we don't know how to make a paratha unless we learn how to do it. So just because we have a brain doesn't mean we can think straight. Just because we have a mouth doesn't mean we can talk right. Similarly, just because we have a heart doesn't mean we know how to fill it. Doesn't mean how to be content. So yeah, happiness, like anything else, has to be learned.
Okay, fantastic, Robin. Actually, before we end, can people volunteer? What is the process for volunteering at People Farm? Or if
They have
someone
to
wants
go
to
to
visit? Hmm.
yeah, So we are open for visits 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. every day, Monday to Saturday, except Sunday. And then for volunteering, they have to go to our website. There's a link where they can fill the volunteer form. We are very picky about the kind of volunteers we take.
Okay. Thank you, Robin. Thank you for doing this.